So thank you very much for the textile business for having me here to moderate this session. It's the leadership team of the whole textile business and other businesses of the group that are actually present in this panel. We'll have a lot of insights that we'll be hearing from these gentlemen. So if the panel allows me, I'll just set the context by having some background about textile industry. So textile industry, the current context is generates more than 300 million jobs globally, and it is actually major contributor in GDP in many of the countries, especially in the developing countries like Bangladesh, Vietnam, and all. And textile industry is the industry where the industrialization of a country or the economic development of the country starts. So that is the background of textile industry, which is a very valuable industrial contributor to the GDP. On the other hand, fashion industry, which is textile is largely looked at as a part of the fashion industry, has a carbon footprint approximately 8 to 10% of the global carbon footprint. And it also consumes more than 93 million cubic meter of water. And many of these textile industries are present in this part of the world, especially in Asia and developing countries, where water, the primary commodity, shared commodity, is very much in scarce condition. So this is a scary situation as far as the people who are looking at textile industry. Given the above scenario, lots of NGOs, especially many big NGOs like Fashion for Good, or maybe it is like Changing Markets. These are all very active, and they have been following it up, like Canopy, who are also facilitating how the industry need to change. They are following it up with the industry to see their practices, raising with a lot of concerns, making a lot of reports, and kind of taking the initiative or guiding the industry to move forward in more sustainable fashions. So this is the context. With this context, on one side, on the environmental activism, there is another side, which is the regulatory activism. UN is very, very active in the biodiversity, also on the many materiality issues like water and GHG emissions. The first, the Paris Agreement, where everyone has signed, including India, has signed on the GHG emissions, is all part of the study that has been conducted on the basis of the global warming, where they decided that 2 degrees the limitation that need to be done pre-industrial scenario. However, that is now getting ratified to 1.5 degrees scenario. Accordingly, now science-based targets have come into picture, and many of the industries are asked whatever net zero emissions they have taken up that need to be ratified by this science-based target. So there is a regulatory pressure. That regulatory pressure is also converted into local governments taking those kind of targets and announce their own internal targets. In terms that is getting converted into the industry, how the industry is going to map up their particular targets in aligning with the national targets. So this is the overall scenario of the textile industry currently. In this scenario, sustainability, as we heard in the past, like Mr. Thomas has also told in his keynote, that it is not to do thing, it is a must to do thing. So in such scenario, how we are going to see that sustainability is not only to do because of the regulatory pressure and all, how this is also going to convert in terms of creating value to the organization. So that is the context today we are assembled here. I'm very glad we have Shri Dilip Gaud, Shri Jayan Doble, Shri Thomas Varghese, Shri Vishak. We have a blend of experience, youth, young dynamic leaders of our group are present here. Our group has an exposure of almost $5.3 billion as revenues from the textile business, be it pulp and fiber, acrylic fiber, textile, yarn manufacturing, or our fashion industry, ABFRL is concerned, and VFI is concerned. So with this background and with very complex supply chain situations, how do we actually look at this scenario? How we are going to make this, how difficult these decisions to make at the boardroom level, how difficult it is for the C-suite, especially the CSO level, CEO level, to guide the businesses and to get the board aligned with these targets and move in the direction what the world is expecting, especially in the textile value chain, fashion value chain. It is not only B2B in many businesses, which we think is B2B, but entire value chain is currently being looked as B2C only, because every customer, whoever is buying any particular garment, is really started looking in where is it coming from, how is it is being manufactured, right from the top of the value chain, from fiber manufacturing up to the garment at the store. So without taking much more time, I'll just get into the discussions. I have a few questions to ask. First, I have a common question to all the panel members, which is a very generic question. With so much of activism as we have discussed right now, and a huge pressure to act now. On the other hand, with quarter-to-quarter pressures that you all see every quarter that you have to present, be it to your shareholders or be it to your board, how do you see the textile industry can cope up with this kind of change in scenario? How to allocate the funds, how to allocate the resources, how to move towards this journey? Especially when you have, as a CEO, very difficult to answer the external ambitions of the external shareholders. Over to you. Gautam, may I request you to start with?
Surya, I think the very fact raised like activism, the pressure on profitability, I think these are the very reasons why we should go for sustainable business model. Because my belief and my experience so far tells me that the best way to differentiate a commodity business is through sustainability. Otherwise, we all have been struggling for so many years to create a differentiating model in a commodity business. Now, the guy who does it, it's a winner take away game. So if you do it fast, if you lead the, so as I think what Thomas said, it's a must do thing. So it is not about compliance. As long as you look at sustainability as a compliance issue, you will always be looking at it as a cost. I think it is a part of doing the business. And if so, I never look at raw material cost when I'm doing a business. Whatever is the cost, I have to build on value on top of it. So if you work with that mindset, I think one thing, it gives you a better differentiation. It gives you greater stickiness, because if you're a sustainable business, brands become more stickier to you. So what do you want in the business? You want growth, you want stickiness, which I think this provides. On top of it, I think even the NGOs, if you are a progressive business, the less activism, they will go to somebody else. To my mind, if you take position as a leader in sustainability, you would have made your business far more robust. And I can share a couple of experience on the pulp and fiber business. We talk about ZLD. There was investment of 150 crores we made in that. But that gave us a very high point in the global market that we are the lowest water consuming business in the world. And that claim could help you launch a product called Liva Eco, which gave you a premium. And so I think it became a value driver. Same way, when you invested in the EU BAT, what have you done? You kind of built a partnership with the brands, and they started becoming an advocate. And I think the biggest way, I tell you, because we did Canopy, we did EU BAT, we could exclude 60% of the Chinese suppliers who wear red shirts and yellow shirts from competing with you, which you could have never in your lifetime by any innovation. So to my mind, I think sustainability we must look upon as a source of a competitive advantage rather than as a cost to us. And if we change the mindset, I think you'll find solutions differently.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, sir. I think so there is a new dimension in terms of sustainability not being looked as a value creator. Also, it is actually as a differentiator, which will give a specific place for your products in the market, and you can create market. Very interesting. May I request, Vishak, for your particular business, how do you look at this activism, and how do you face this music, if I can call it on a day-to-day basis?
Yes, thank you for setting this up, Surya, and Thomas, thanks for inviting me for this. It's a privilege to be in such a lovely panel. Thank you for that. You know, Surya, in our industry, actually the pressure is not the problem. The problem is what Tuhin articulated earlier from yesterday's discussion, which is that it's a must do. It is not a good to do anymore. But the real challenge is there is not enough pressure. And hence various brands, not just in India, but across the world, have literally got away with murder. Okay, and let me give you an analogy. If you've got a oily, greasy hamburger full of maida, stale bread, all kinds of not so healthy things which have gone into it, and then somebody says, "Okay, I'm putting one leaf of lettuce in it. Now it's become healthy." That is the analogy for what most of our industry has been doing in the name of sustainability. Okay, take one small piece somewhere, magnify it disproportionately as if that is what is going to save the planet, and done lots of PR, entire machinery of PR being built for that, rather than doing. And actually, when you look at the list of things to be done, this conference has so beautifully articulated the set of things which need to be done. It's fairly evident that these are things which need to be done. And yet there are very, very few organizations. For example, Patagonia is an organization which has taken it on really well, but they're a fairly niche organization. We in India, as ABFRL, have chosen now to say, look, let's not do this because there is huge pressure. Let's do this because it's the right thing to do, and let's show the rest of the industry the way as market leaders. So we are taking this on almost to create demand for sustainability, almost to be able to say, look, let's have consumers feeling. First of all, you'll have to tell them. Consumers get it when you tell them. Not enough brands have told them what is the right thing to do. But after having to, let's get consumers, and that is where Dilip's point about sustainability as a competitive advantage can also start coming in. Let's have consumers feeling proud of wearing sustainable products. Uh, a lot of it, of course, has to start with energy, like you rightly articulated in our business, and a whole lot of things we are doing. For instance, more than half of our factory premises are green buildings, and we are doing a lot of things to be able to drive that change. A lot of things from things which are not because regulatory compliance is asking, but because they are the right thing to do, and we want to set the lead on that. So across dimensions, we have, for instance, we're launching a campaign called Green Crest, which is on Louis Philippe. Louis Philippe, as you know, has the crown or the crest as a symbol. We've launched a line called the Green Crest, where we are educating consumers at large that, look, why is this a greener product? Right from making it with organic cotton without pesticides, etc., to zero plastic anywhere in the product or in its packaging, to a whole lot of things that we're doing to say, look, let's set the standard. If Louis Philippe can become the standard for sustainability in this country, hopefully others will follow because they will have to stay competitive.
That's fantastic. So one of the things is we are doing bits and pieces and in pockets of a lot of sustainability work. However, it is not getting packaged together and getting communicated is one of the way. One of the major issues where these all NGOs and all others are getting into the space and making a lot of those. It's very interesting. In fact, my second question is in the same direction, which I will come back to you again. Meanwhile, let me go to Mr. Jayant. Mr. Jayant, you are also handling this filament yarn, and you are also having a lot of pressure from various brands that they wanted to take your product basis on the China Plus One strategy, and but at the same time they want you to adopt all these whatever the new changes they are suggesting, like EU BAT or getting Canopy certification, etc. So the NGO activism is definitely there in VFI business as well. So how, as a leader, you are actually looking at this? Are you looking at it as an opportunity and taking it forward, or also having seen multiple businesses across the globe, how you have actually kind of, articulating that with that experience into the current business context? Over to you, Mr. Jayant.
Thanks, Surya. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because we have had this global Microsoft outage today, so sometimes I've had issues. Hey, the question originates from activism, right? And Dilip mentioned earlier that if we look at sustainability only as compliance, then we are not seeing the full picture. Having said that, activism has a role to play even in compliance, right? So I'll give you an example. We run chemical plants all over the place, and nowadays it's very easy, for somebody to pull out a mobile phone, take a picture, share it in a WhatsApp group, etc. And in a way, very often our site teams get frustrated with that. They come and tell me, no, this guy has a political agenda, etc. But I will actually start with basics of compliance, that ultimately activism does improve the compliance profile of a company. Whether you look at what is happening today in the chemical industry in Europe or in Japan, a lot of it has happened because the society around those industries demanded a change for the better. And very often in the chemical industry, the word license to operate is used. Some of you may have heard it. Very often, this word license to operate relates to regulatory approvals. But I think those of us particularly who handle dangerous industrial processes also have a license to operate from society. And if we fail in that license to operate, we will not have a successful business. So activism is, in my opinion, a force for good, even starting at the compliance level. Then I take it a step further. Dilip mentioned, once there is enough awareness, it can be a competitive advantage. And I will give two examples here, one from my previous experience and one from within ABG. So before I joined ABG, I also worked for some time in the packaging industry. And as you know, the packaging industry is at the center of consumer activism on sustainability, right? So plastic bottles, plastic bags, ocean litter, etc. That gets far more consumer attention than probably any other sustainability topic. And in my previous company, Amcor, it's the world's largest packaging company and listed on the New York Stock Exchange. We often had internal discussions about, but it's not our problem, right? The problem is that Indonesia does not know how to manage litter, and they get flooding, and this water flows with the packaging material onto the ocean. Hum kya karenge isme, right? Or in India, there is not enough collection of and separation of waste. However, you don't win that argument. That's the reality. Many of us here will remember, when we were very young, we used to use a product called DDT, dichlorodyphenyl trichloroethane, as a insecticide. This product is fat soluble, and most Indian mothers have it in their milk because it ended up in the food chain and it was banned. Scientific information shows that it's a product that is harmless to humans from a toxicology perspective, but it's an irrelevant argument because no consumer will accept that mother's milk has DDT in it, right? Whatever science says or may not say. So you have to recognize it as a reality. So what, for example, we did in the packaging industry is we then started engaging brands and end consumers on where could we be a part of the solution, right? And how could you position the product differently to be recycle ready, to allow easy separation, to allow consumers to differentiate what is recyclable versus what is not recyclable. And then, as Dilip pointed out, it creates a value advantage because you can then charge a little bit more for the better product that you produce. I take a similar example now. If I look within the Aditya Birla Group, within our CFI sector, everybody is talking of wind, right, as a renewable power. Wind blades are made of thermosetting plastics, which cannot be recycled. And these things, weigh tons per blade, and they have no end of life solution. What we have done, for example, with our R&D group is we have bought some patents from University of Berkeley and are in the process of commercializing them, making us potentially one of the first player in the world to be able to offer a thermosetting plastic which can actually be recycled in wind, right? And some of you may have been in Jaipur, you will have probably seen the video that was presented here. And I can tell you, in this particular case, we will not be able to charge a little bit extra money. we will be able to charge an enormous amount of extra money for this solution. Right? So actually, activism is a force for good, and sustainability and innovation go hand in hand. And to
Fantastic.
create value out of sustainability, you have to get your innovation picture sorted out. Now, if I look then to our VFY business, and probably very quickly, right? We have a great product called SSY, which uses a significantly less amount of water, energy, etc., etc. And to be very frank with you, we have not done much to brand it as a significantly sustainable product in the universe of rayon filament yarns, right? And that's work in progress for us. I think this is something that we also, within VFY have to step up on. But the opportunities exist to create awareness, to deploy innovation, and subsequently to create extra value for the shareholders.
Thank you. That's really very insightful. Innovation and sustainability hand in hand, goes hand in hand. That's very good. And the sustainability and activism drive the innovation and sustainability. That's very, very insightful. Now, Mr. Thomas, I just want you to throw some light on the same topic, but with the context of textile business, where you have so much of a manpower intense industry, aligning the whole organization to think through the kind of this activism and the demand that is coming in, and how we align our operations in line with that requirements. So it will be very interesting to know your experience and how you are driving it.
Thank you, Surya. And I must thank all the panelists for being here. It's a privilege and an honor to be with all my colleagues. In the textile business, we started working towards sustainability almost in year 2012-13, much ahead of other organizations. When we started, there was a lot of resistance, and convincing was required even to my own CEOs on the benefit and the potential impact in the long run. Somehow I always had a strong conviction that in the long term, benefits and needs of sustainability in business operations, and thereby took many initiatives to build sustainability as a culture, and not merely limited for the sake of governance or compliance, as we have discussed. What are the things we did to build in this culture? We formed a Sustainability Advisory Council with domain experts in energy, water, GHG, climate change, who could advise us on the upcoming trends and best practices. We initiated an annual energy conference in 2013 for textile business, which has now evolved into from energy to a sustainability conference, covering all aspects of sustainability. During the pandemic, we continued to do this, and we were delighted with our last online conference, which had more than 300 participants. Now, when I started the energy conference, again, there was a lot of skepticism. And I'm happy that we persisted with the effort, because it has paid rich dividends for the business. We institutionalized Sustainability Apex Council meeting for each business every quarter, which is chaired personally by me. We haven't missed one quarter since 2013 till now. We also went into an overdrive and started publishing detailed sustainability reports on GRI for every unit. This was something which was completely unprecedented in the textile industry. And I'm happy to say that we will now be publishing our 8th sustainability report on GRI. And it's been a tremendously rewarding journey for us. While the journey has been slow, not driven by high ROI and quick wins, we are slowly and steadily making progress. And that's very, very heartwarming for us. Implementing ESG as a critical element in our business strategy is what we have tried to embed in our culture. I could say that this cognizance of sustainability in the minds of key stakeholders is a big win and speaks volumes about the success of thought leadership within our business. We continue to innovate on products, practices, and focus on adopting evolving sustainability practice so that we will contribute to our group's target of being carbon neutral by 2050. So this is going to be a tough, but the journey has started and we are all committed towards this journey. We've also taken much smaller initiatives during this period, small initiatives which we think will go a big way in the long run. In fact, I take pride in speaking and acknowledging how the annual Sustainability Summit has become an integral part of our business. In the interim, we also did include Birla Cellulose Fiber. This was during KK's time, Dilip. You may not be aware.
Yeah.
We included them and we continue. This time also invites have gone to all your team members, all the team members in Pulp and Fiber. And as we speak, we are in the 7th annual Sustainability Congress. So I think this is the way we've been able to embed culture. Now, I'm happy that at least after so many years now, there is a growing commitment in the entire leadership towards sustainability. And it is not I think it's not a coincidence that in the last 3 years, we have been only hearing of this one top mega trend around the world, which has taken the whole world by storm. And we all know that, sustainability, as I explained in my keynote yesterday, is no longer to have. And I'm very happy with what all my fellow panelists have talked about. Dilip, that it's a business model. It's a competitive leadership. Vishak said it's actually good for us. Activism will push us into, doing better things and will push competition too along with us. And we've got to take the leadership. And Jayant has given some outstanding examples of how global companies can also begin to make changes around the world. We heard what Shell was doing yesterday. So I think it's a mix of all these things, Surya, which is going to make a very big difference in the years to come. I hope I've made some sense to the question.
Yeah, very interesting. I think it is like, as a leader, it's about like taking the initiative and leading it from the front, showing the thought leadership, implementing this, following it up to implementation stage. It's very interesting to understand what is happening in textile industry. Now, I had one point which I wanted to discuss, take your views, is on the communication. We briefly touched, many of you have already shown some kind of thrown some kind of light on that communication. But with this all activism and with this all global community having a lot of knowledge about fashion industry, how critical is this communication? I just wanted to give one example of what is happening in biodiversity. Most of the MMC of industry, which we have as a group, a large presence, is now being looked into one of the industries which is actually deforesting. But we are not deforesting without having responsibility. We are doing a responsible forestry. We are using all the responsible forestry generated wood only. But how that communication going into the market and how critical it is, in your opinion? May I start with Gaur Saab only again to just start the conversation about what you have seen in the past when this all activism started?
So I think, like everywhere in life, doing is important, but communicating is as important. Because I think communication frames perceptions. And when it comes to sustainability, it is even more important. And you took a good example, and I'll take you on this forestry. We have a big pulp business. We all know about it. And everyone, if you will not communicate, somebody else will communicate. So two things we have to look at in life. That if something has to be communicated, I think you should do it proactively rather than waiting for somebody else to write. And if he writes, he will give his perspective. That's what has happened on the forestry side of it. Now, if you look typically at a pulp mill, everybody says that you are cutting trees, but nobody knows that we plant 3 times more trees for every tree cut. So in Sweden, where we are having our pulp mill, the forest cover has gone up from 85% to 130%. But because we did not do it proactively, people start writing all kinds of a thing. but I can tell you how you can change the whole narrative. If you look at for the larger group, Domjo is a plant where from wood you make pulp. When you make pulp, you get lignin. So you take out lignin. Lignin is an adhesive and it goes in cement as an adjunct mixer. So that plant produces green power because with the waste heat you generate power. It with the sugars in the wood we convert to ethanol. It makes green ethanol, which goes into the blending of the gasoline. It has all the bark which goes into the boilers, which gives you the renewable fuel for the boiler. It does not use any chlorine, so it's a chlorine-free pulp, and it is a full 100% recycle. So we said it is not a pulp mill, it's a biorefinery. And at the end of the day, the amount of positive thing it's creating is far more than what it is taking from the forest of Mother Earth. And you won't believe, with that communication, the entire Sweden has taken biorefinery as a model. They no longer talk about a pulp mill. And from a deforesting company, you become a company which is creating a value across the whole gamut. So everything is same. Elephant is same, but how you describe it is different. And that's the power of communication. And I think as sustainability managers, we have to understand very, very clearly that we have to be very proactive about communication. And as some of the companies which Vishak was saying, do less but get more visibility, is they communicate greatly. So there is a positive, but we have to balance the whole thing. You have to do and communicate as well. Second point is, if you are not communicated, for heaven's sake, and you get into problem, what I call reactive communication, which I think again we also had a great experience with the changing markets. One thing is, never ever sound like you are rationalizing. Never ever try to justify your action. I think it's always in sustainability, you can never be perfect. It's always good to first accept that yes, what you are saying may have a point. We accept it. We would like to work with you. We want to improve upon you. Take care, and the whole ball game changes. So the NGO job also is to show a positive improvement. So to my mind, I think the communication skills is very, very important, because whatever you do in life, activists will always find something. But as long as you have a pathway and you become a partner, so I think that it's very important. Never ever try to justify that I'm meeting the norms, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Take the points on you and then look, we have done this, can we improve it further? The third point, which I think is very important, is creating a trust. And I think I'll tell you a very good example. When the changing market story happened, everybody said we'll comply UBAT. Everybody said I'll put $160 million investment, $100 million investment, and every company was saying this. Chinese, A, B, C, D, E, F, everybody. You won't believe this changing market fellow went to the vendors and found out who has placed the orders. And we were the only guys who had placed the order for the equipment. Everybody else had just put in the newspaper but never placed the order. And the whole image changed. In the market, we were a hero. And he went and told this company means business. And suddenly you find from a laggard you become a leader. So I think walking the talk is very important. Being humble is very important. I think nobody is perfect in this world and people understand this. But if you do it in a nice way and then don't try to say that I know more. I think this is sum total is, I think if you want to become a great sustainability manager, you have to be a great communicator. And I think it is as important as what you do technically on your plant. That's my take from this.
Fantastic. Some very, very enriching examples for whole audience. I'm sure they must be really enjoying this conversation. I just now go to Vishak. Vishak, you're actually the front end of the consumer. And so long as we always see the brand's communication is all about what is the brand delivering and what is the product that is actually in line with the brand delivery. But how you actually see that sustainability also need to be part of or to be embedded in this communication, and how this is happening as far as Mother Earth Government's context is concerned. You're muted.
Yeah, a very valid point, Surya, that you picked up. And like Dilip said, not enough to do, you'll have to tell that you're doing. So first, of course, And like again, Dilip said, we also first said, look, let's do everything perfect before we start communicating. And then we realized that that is going to be quite a distance away. You're not going to get everything right together. So let's start by getting meaningful chunks of things done, which are the right things to do, and start communicating that. So and this is at multiple levels. At first level, I'll tell you, when we shared what we have done on sustainability in our employee town hall, there were so many people who got so excited that, look, I'm so proud, that we are doing things beyond sales and profit. And I was aware of bits and pieces, but when you see the whole thing together, that's a lot of things that we're doing. I'm so proud to be working here. So it's not just customers, even our own people. There's clearly a sense of pride in saying that I'm doing the right things. With consumers, there has always been this challenge of simplicity in communication versus a complex theme which needs to be communicated here. It's not an easy measure, which is why a lot of people have gotten away with a lot of optics and greenwashing. So it is a complex subject to explain, and it is sometimes choices of blended versus cotton, pesticide harmful effect of that versus something else which is going to go to landfill. So there are choices to be made in various things, cruelty free versus leather. So there are so many areas where there are trade-offs, there are choices to be made. And yet, I think it is good that people are starting to talk about it. We are very clear that as our brands, we will take the lead on this. So you will, in the next few months itself, you will start seeing a lot more in our product communication, in our social media handles, in our mass media also. You will start seeing stuff about our brands. So that is something which will happen. What is also important over a period of time, if you see the FMCG industry, the FMCG industry was able to do this fairly well in terms of labeling of products. They got into a lot of ingredients because consumers, once they started realizing, oh, this has brominated vegetable oil. Oh, okay, this is what it means. And over a period of time on various dimensions, consumers started getting it that these are things which I'm consuming, I'm eating, etc. I think increasingly our industries will have to start doing that so that consumers get more transparency. To begin with, there might be some confusion, some over communication, etc. And hopefully out of that will emerge larger messages to consumers.
That's very, very good. I think that's transparency part is very important. So now I will not take this question further because there's a set of questions and there's a very precious time that we will be getting from you guys. So what I will do is I'll go into the next part of we discussed enough on the environmental and the social activism and all. But on the second element of the social angle is also very, very important in the ESG journey for most of the industries, because we, as Mr. Jain has rightly mentioned, you need to have the license to operate from the society as well. It is not only from the government. So this is a very, very valid and very important point, and the social angle and social activism is creating a lot of buzz. So I just wanted to ask, huge pressure on organization in terms of like what they see is that you are minting a lot of money and then you are not doing enough to the society. On the other side, you are trying to get a lot of pressure from the governing structure, governing mechanism on the social side. And also you have a lot of stakeholders who are nearby who actually sold your land or maybe are residing next to you. They have wanted to take more water and you need water from the same resources, and all these things will create a lot of pressure on the organization. So how is this impacting the textile industry? I just wanted to start with Thomas and wanted to ask him that in each of the geographies that you are operating, how this social angle is becoming an increasingly difficult to handle, or how we are actually addressing it.
Yeah, Surya, I think very good question, because I don't think there is any difference in the way different geographies react to this issue. According to me, governance as part of ESG has become very, very important. I heard Jayant use a phrase which I've used a lot of time in the past. And we say that, we need the license to operate, and the license to operate is not the industrial license issued by the Factories Act, but the license issued by the society to operate in a particular environment. So what we did as a part of this whole Apex committee, which we had meetings every quarter, we used to review every aspect of governance and the social element as importantly as we would do with respect to what have we done with respect to safety, what have we done with respect to energy, water, waste, etc. So there was a huge amount of focus to enforcing in the minds of our people that the social license to operate was equally, if not more important than even what we were achieving by way of technological interventions. In fact, we have been continuously looking at not just the KPIs with respect to energy, water, and waste, but we realized that one of the most important things which will become crucial in the years to come is traceability of products for ensuring that you have the green certificate, much like what Vishak said about what they want to do with the green crest. But if you look at EU policy, which has been put in place a few months ago, they are coming out with a digital passport, product passport. And this is going to make it mandatory for information requirement on circularity and other key environmental aspects, and which may have to be introduced digitally. Therefore, what we anticipate in coming future is traceability, and LCA will be great enablers to product information. And we are also assessing risk in all our units, including ESG related risk, and have tried to start doing future proofing of our businesses. This is something we started about 5-6 years ago. There was a little bit of a halt to this, but we restarted it. I believe that in large companies like ours, there has to be a greater emphasis on governance. In fact, when we talk about the E factor, which is the environment, can we implement any project without project evaluation, project monitoring, without considering the impact it has on the environment? The answer is simply no. In fact, we've tried to ensure that no capex is now sanctioned without following the laid down procedure of actually passing the environmental test. On the social front, we've tried to ensure, and as you know, it's not just the activists. You must understand that environmental sustainability, ESG, has now become mandatory when you look at financial institutions. You look at any financial institutions of any repute globally, they are now looking at your environmental footprint. They're looking at what you are doing, even before they even think of considering giving you any loans. This has become absolutely crucial in the days to come. So therefore, to ensure that we have policies for equal pay, diversity, focus on CSR activities, and we are very happy that in very small measure, many of our units are actually making some degree of change in the lives of communities around them. Again, I come back to saying that if you don't do that, there is going to be no license to operate for us. And again, I'm talking about society's license to operate is absolutely critical on governance, not for the sake of governance to compliance, but governance from the point of view of worrying about the people in your community and society, worrying about your own employees' safety, because no project which involves safety of employees is even stopped for a minute, even if it doesn't have returns, because it means you care about your people. And unless you demonstrate that, you're never going to have commitment, not just within your people, but also from the external stakeholders. So I think this is really what we've tried to do in the textile business, and I hope we've begun to make some difference.
That's very, very good. Actually, I see a lot of those activism on the social link. I come back to Jan Dobleji. This, you mentioned that we do produce some chemicals and some of them are very dangerous chemicals as well. So I want you to link the previous question of communication was along with that, how you take care of this in such an environment, how your people who are associated with you to work directly and the community at large, which is residing next to you, are actually being taken care of, and how you are actually communicating that to the outside world. And any experience currently or in the past, that would be wonderful for us to hear from you.
Right. Hey, thanks, Surya. By the way, both Dilip and I have a CREC meeting to attend. So I think Dilip, our
Yeah,
hard
so
stop is at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm also going to have a hard stop after this. Only one question I'll be having it, and then 5 minutes question and answers from people.
Okay, excellent. Hey, so look, in my view, especially when you look at hazardous materials, chemicals, etc., it all starts with having the right engineering and technology standard, right? The budgets, etc., are an outcome afterwards, but doing a proper pre-conceptual stage hazard study, for example, though probably not relevant for textiles, or choosing the appropriate technology, doing the right type of life cycle analysis, and making sure that you actually have a project which gives a incrementally improved footprint, if I may use that word, is absolutely critical. Especially, for example, if you're going into a water stressed area, and in India, India is going to be one of the worst impacted countries in the world because of global warming, right? And large parts of Gujarat, for example, qualify as water stressed. So speaking at the level of project and engineering, I think the work to be done, the fundamental work to be done is extremely important. And in general, I cannot speak for all of ABG, but I see that within CFI, we have a lot of improvement to do here. Having said that, we also sometimes address issues, right? And I will take the example of water stress in Gujarat. So we have a site in Veraval that uses water from a nearby dam. We also know the same area, people are doing agriculture, people are doing farming. And one day I was walking around in the streets of Veraval by myself, and I ended up talking to some of the locals who did not know who I was because I had just gone out for a walk. And I said, ये बाजू में फैक्ट्री है, बहुत अच्छा होगा आपके लिए, employment generate होता है ये वो. So one of the guys says, sir, आपको पता है क्या कि हमको हफ्ते में 1 दिन पानी मिलता है, ये लोग जो अंदर कॉलोनी में रहते हैं उनको 7 दिन पानी मिलता है.
My God.
Right. And that was such an eye opener for me. And I relate to it because, we are supplying water 7 days in our colony, right? And we were already at that point of time in the process of doing the engineering work on our desalination project, where we would take water from the ocean, desalinate it, and hopefully at some point reduce our dependence on dam water and stuff like that. But that day, what it struck me is the real importance of the work that we are doing. That what it would mean to the communities around us in terms of maybe even getting 1 more day of water in a week or 2 more days of water in a week, right? So, while we have to focus a lot on communication and we must get better at it. And, Dilip spoke about it earlier. And I will actually give 3 examples. I will invite the audience to actually Google it. I will not go into the depth. Google some communication challenges that BP had in the Deepwater Horizon case. Google some of the challenges Nike had in child labor in Vietnam. And also Google the challenges Apple had in its supply chain in China related to mental health and suicides, right? And see how these companies dealt or struggled or failed at some of these communications, just as a learning, But having said that communication is extremely important, it has to be built on a foundation of real work, right? Otherwise, it is just spin. It is greenwashing. And I think, luckily, in our company, we are socially conscious, right? As a company, we are socially conscious. We are recognized as a socially conscious company. And I think all of us here as leaders have a responsibility to ensure that the work that we do makes a real difference to the communities that live around us. And I cannot think of any example, other than the one I had, at this chai ka dukan outside the Veeravel shop, where everywhere around the plant, 1 day of water, and we have all the water in the world.
Very, 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 very good example. It's really mind-boggling. Ishak, I think if I don't touch this question with you, it will be really very complete, because for you it's a very complex supply chain. Your ingredients, raw materials that comes from various parts or various corners, and you will have a lot at stake to explain to them that everything is done in an ethical fashion and there is no social governance issues are involved. How do you manage this, and how are you facing this? And with Indian context, of course, now you also have a lot of brands sourcing material from you, products from you. How do you communicate and how do you manage this particular aspect of social?
I think, like Jayan said, if it starts with our niyat, our intention, it becomes a lot simpler. I think as a group, as a business, we are reasonably clear that we want to do the right thing. Because many a times, we can choose to be an ostrich, we can choose to not look at reality and then hope that all is well. I think we as a business have progressed to a level where we are very, very keen to make sure that we do the right thing across various dimensions of sustainability. I'll give you examples of some of this. We source kids wear products from across the country, and we were comparing it with one competitor, and their prices were much sharper. And then I'm not going to name the company, but then somebody said in the meeting they source from XYZ places in Kolkata. I said, what about these places? No, they are not very labor friendly, okay? Including the work conditions, the height of the mezzanine floor, all of that are not labor friendly. Simple. So if we go there, we would also get that 20 rupee cost reduction. So, but do you want to do it? No, we don't want to do it. So at least in our system, we are reasonably clear that even if there is a cost disadvantage, we will not go to a place like that. Okay. COVID was another example when profit pressure would have said so many people in the industry laid off people. We chose not to lay off even one person, not even one. And this was, again, it came from conscience. There was no governance to this. There's no regulatory governance that you must not lay off people or anything like that. And yet we said these are our people in good times and bad. We will not lay off even one person. So I think across the value chain, there is reasonable amount of clarity that these are the right things to do. We must do them, including on declarations to consumers on will this bleed color, will this not bleed color? This is the kind of dye stuff which are used. These are natural dye stuffs, and hence there will be or there will be natural imperfections. I think once the intention is clear, answers will appear. Sometimes those answers will be short-term painful. We'll just have to deal with it and do it because it's the right thing to do. And somewhere I think good karma leads to good business. So if you do good karma, I think it will translate to good business.
Very nicely put in, Vishak. Thank you very much. So, see, this is a wonderful panel, and I think whoever is listening must be enriching with all these experiences that you are giving. If you permit me, I will close this with one more last question, which will be towards the governance. Then it will be completing the complete ESG. It will take another 5 minutes. Is it okay to take that last question? Gaur Sahab and Jayanji, because you are hard pressed with the time.
So each 1 minute to make sure that.
Yeah. Okay. That's up to you, please. So now, see, the boardrooms always get a lot of pressure in terms of various aspects, like you have to give advance notice or advance declaration of what is going to be the revenues for you, etc. And on top of it, you have the growth that you have to implement the strategy of the business, growth strategy of your business. All this require a lot of resources. And then on top of it, you will be having these kind of pressure that you need to make it more and more sustainable. How this is being dealt at boardrooms, some of you are part of the boards, may not be directly in your own business, maybe in across other businesses, or maybe you are as a CXO or a CEO or a C-suite executive, maybe presenting it to the board to convince them. Also, I wanted you to club with one angle of it is how that you suggest your businesses to come back and present these requirements in more, on a written basis, so that it will be more attractive to invest in such kind of initiative. I'll start with Gautam. Just how is this being happening at ABM-CPL level and at various business level? Because you've been part of ABM-CPL director, you may be having such kind of discussions ABM-CPL level also.
Both at ABM-CPL level and the company level, one thing which I have realized in the last 10 years, there has never been a proposal ever cut down for safety or environmental compliances. There were times when I have seen even in the financial turndown, even COVID time, we did not get capex for the business growth, but we got capex for the environmental projects. So I think that the right to license projects always get through. So I think that commitment is huge. Second, every small incident of safety has to be presented to the board. So I think that part also is very well institutionalized now. So even the frontline manager comes and presents to the chairman. Where does it happen? It happens nowhere. So to that extent, I think the commitment of the board is huge. The time we spend on the related party transactions, the time we spend on the governance issues is phenomenal. So to my mind, I think the commitment and it starts from the basic DNA. We have just done a purpose exercise, and that purpose exercise is driven from a core values, and the core value is governance becomes very, very important part of our being there. And I always say, even the structures are ensuring that. You have a company like Grasim, where there could be possibility of interrelations, transfer pricing issues. It's run independently by 4 different CEOs, whoever does it. I think you are creating a huge arm's length operation within an organization. So I think we do it both structurally and process-wise. I think that's something and underlying theme is the values and purpose. So that's what ensures governance.
Yeah, fantastic. That's very eye-opener for many people who really don't know what is happening at the board level and at ABM-CPL level. May I request, Mr. Jain, you have any experience, and also can you club how it used to happen in your previous organizations when you worked across the globe?
Yes, I'll keep it very short, and I will directly quote from my previous company, DSM. And what I say is publicly available, so no secrets here. DSM has been in the last 10 years or always in the top 1 or 2 in the chemical sector globally on sustainability. And the question, the way in which the board always approached the sustainability question was sustainability of profitability and cash flow over the next 100 years. So it was the question of sustainability was not an environmental topic or a safety topic only, right? It really was, how does the corporation remain sustainable over the next 100 years? And when you ask the question in that way, you have to look at very different layers, right? Of course, you have to make sure you don't harm your environment. Of course, you have to make sure you don't have safety incidents. But what is the sustainability of your technology? What is the sustainability of your talent pipeline? How is the technology landscape getting disrupted? So it becomes a far more holistic question than just addressing what typically in sustainability would become environmental and sustainability issues. So it was more about sustainability of the business. So that's one element. The second was, at least in that company, the targets were very transparently communicated. Whatever targets, right? Whether it is, for example, diversity, if we want our diversity to more reflect our end markets, right, then there would be KPIs around that, very, very transparently communicated. And most importantly, and a lot of these would form a part of the board level compensation. So for example, if there was a certain sustainability target not met, whether around safety or big incidents or whatever, it would have an impact actually also on compensation, not only of people like myself, but even people above me at the board level. So that entire governance structure was extremely transparent, and it went all the way to the top of the organization, and it was publicly disclosed. And if you go to the website of that company, it's very simple. You can find that. So I will restrict my input to my experience in that company, because still within ABG I do not have the level of experience of how the boards here operate in India, etc., etc.
Right. Thank you very much. I think Mr. Thomas, quickly from your side on this aspect, like how you have when you're presenting it to the for getting the funding or resources for the sustainability projects.
I think Surya, I think a lot has been covered already by Dilip and by Jayant with respect to his experience. I think at the end of the day, presenting an issue which concerns the sustainability of the business, which involves the safety of your employees, which involves the sustainability and growth of your business and stickiness with your clients, is a lot to do with your purpose, a lot to do with, as Vishak explained, your intentions. So even when you go to the board, when your intentions are very clear and they are to support either customers, support environment, support safety, or whatever the key issue is, I don't think it's ever a problem to get support from them. My experience has always been, as rightly Dilip said, that you never have a problem when your clearly stated intentions, your core values, and the purpose for which you are going to the board with this proposal are clear. And I have never seen ever there being a problem to get the commitment of the board, because the board is very clear. They are also, in a sense, embedded in the DNA of this group's ethos. So I don't think it's ever a problem.
Thank you.
That's my
Thank you very much. That's very, very insightful about what is happening at ABG. Vishak, you are also a full-time director of ABFRL business, and you must be in like every board, you must be discussing these aspects. So I would like to hear from you as well.
So, I think since we have a very similar DNA across organizations in the group, so many of the things I would echo what has been said earlier. A couple of other things I want to add. One is that now sustainability is part of our Mancom's KRAs. And there is a fairly transparent measure KPIs around Mancom performance on sustainability. So clearly, and hence it's reflecting on very, very serious intent, which is shared in the business. In addition to that, yes, now with Dow Jones Sustainability Index, etc., we're also being able to get a more sharper measure to what we're doing, and we've so far done reasonably well on those measures. But that again helps you to address various investors and board members who have these questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think it's a shame that we have such a esteemed panel and we have such a limited time to do this. But I'm sure all the participants are very enriched with all the experiences that has been shared. Thank you very much. I don't want to narrate it and say something like that. So over to you.
Thank you, Surya, and thanks to all the panelists for being here. I think we owe it to the summit to also be on time. So thank you all very much, and thank you to my fellow panelists who were. I mean, their experience is brilliant, and I hope my team members take away a lot of learnings. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you,
Thank you. It
Surya.
was a great interaction. Thank
Thanks,
you so
Tom.
much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. So we'll quickly